Hello there and welcome to Ilydan LARP. My name is Nick. I am a member of the design team on Ilydan LARP and I'm doing a series of videos talking through the different character classes within our system to help you, if you're thinking about coming and joining, to understand more about the rules and maybe the options you could have playing a character within our game. Now, I've already spoken about several of the other main character classes, and today I'm finishing off by talking about the Mage class. Now, as I've mentioned before, every character within Ilydan LARP has both a base class and an associated specialist class. The reason we do this is we want the base class to give you a good, rounded, broad range of skills of that sort of character. So in terms of a mage, it's being able to cast spells and use scrolls, those sorts of things, fairly general wizard stuff. And then the four specialist classes, which are Wizard, Scholar, Spellsword and Artificer, add extra skills for you to choose from, which help you take your character in a particular direction. The Mage base class has 8 skills for you to choose from, and each specialist class has another 8 skills for you to choose from. So once you decide to be, let's say, a mage who specializes as a scholar, you have 16 skills in total to choose from as your character develops. So let's crack on and have a look at the base class of the mage. The first of the mage's 8 skills is Binding Lore. Now, any skill that is described with lore, L-O-R-E, after it is a spell list. And at every level of that skill, you learn a spell, which if you have power points, you can use those power points to cast that spell time and again until you run out of power points. So Binding Lore is about controlling and holding. So at first level, you can use 1 power point to cast Glue. It's a ranged spell and it causes the target to become magically stuck to everything that they are touching for 30 seconds. Very good if you want to run away or if you want to hold something in place while you run towards it and catch it up. At higher levels, there are spells such as Hold Person, Hold Monster. At Grandmaster, there is Circle of Binding. Go and read up on that one. It's cool. The second list is Destruction Lore. And Destruction Lore is all about breaking and destroying things. So at Apprentice level, you can cast the spell Blast 1. It's a ranged spell. It causes the target to take 1 point of damage to the chest. It ignores armor. Your mobile artillery, basically. And at higher levels, you get more powerful blasts, and you can also get to shatter or disintegrate objects. Third skill is Find Familiar. As it's a mage base class, all types of mage can have a familiar. When you learn this skill, you can get a little plushie to represent a small animal who has become your familiar. It could be a squirrel, it could be a hedgehog, it could be an imp, a little dragon, whatever it is. That little creature is your familiar. It starts with 2 power points and 1 hit point. While you are holding your familiar, you can draw on its power points to cast your own spells. As you increase the level of your skill with Find Familiar, so your familiar gains more power points and also hit points. If your familiar dies, it's very unhappy for you. You lose all your power points straight away. It's very bad. And also, higher level familiars can do things on your behalf. Like at expert level, you can send your familiar up to 10 meters away from you, and you can concentrate and see and hear through their senses. So you can get them to sneak round a corner and have a look and see what's going on. So that's Find Familiar. Next level is Mage Power. Every time you cast a spell, there are other effects you can do as well, like some combat skills. You might be able to get some of those in some of the specialist classes. You use power points to determine how many times you can use that. So every rank of Mage Power that you learn gives you 5 power points. So if you start with Apprentice Mage Power and Apprentice Destruction Lore, you can cast Blast 1 5 times, then you use those power points up and you have to find a way to restore those power points. After Mage Lore, the next skill on the list for mages is Movement Lore. This is all about moving around, getting to places, doing things safely. So at first level you can cast the spell Featherfall, which means that you are immune from falling damage for the next 30 seconds, and this increases to Blink, and then at master level you can cast Teleport, Grandmaster level Mass Teleport. Very useful spells as a mage, particularly if you want to get away from some really nasty situation. Just teleport out of there. Next spell list is Protection Lore. This is about giving magical protection to mostly to yourself. A lot of the mage skills are focused on the self and protecting and buffing the self. Why spend all your time learning spells just to benefit other people? If you wanted to do that, be a priest. Mages, we do things for us. We're number one. Okay, so Protection Lore, first level, you can cast the spell Magic Armor, and it grants 1 hit point per location. And these hit points will be the first to be lost. The spell lasts for 5 minutes. At Expert level, you can cast Ward, that protects an object. Third level, at Master level, you can cast Magic Armor, which allows you to cast the spell Magic Shell, so it creates like an anti-magic force field around you, and so forth. The final 2 skills for the mage, which obviously are then going to be available across all of the subclasses, are Read Scroll and Write Scroll. So Read Scroll allows you to use a magic scroll to cast a spell that's inscribed on it, and you can cast the spell up to the level of your level of efficiency in Read Scroll. So at an apprentice you can cast any magic scroll that has a first level spell on it. Up to Grandmaster you can cast any magic scroll inscribed with a 4th level spell on it. When you cast a scroll, the scroll ceases to exist. It's a one-shot item, but still very useful if you get a backup library of scrolls for all sorts of occasions. The other thing to note with Read Scroll is you don't have to have access to the spell. You could get a priest scroll, and as long as it's of a sufficient level for you to cast, with Read Scroll you can cast that priest spell or a trickster spell or a paladin spell. So you can take spells from other disciplines and use them through using the scroll. Now with Write Scroll, this is a crafting skill, and once per refresh you can create a magic scroll. It costs you 1 power point, and that prepares a parchment to receive a magic spell. At apprentice level you can receive a 1st level spell, expert 2nd level, and so forth. Now you could cast the spell on yourself from the repertoire of spells that you know, or you can get that spell from another willing source. So let's say your friend the healer is willing to cast one of their healing spells. You can create the scroll. You spend a power point on getting it ready. They spend the power point casting their spell into the scroll. You got yourself a healing scroll, which with Read Scroll you can then do healing magic. So there's really creative things you can do there. So you remember that Magic Armor spell we mentioned earlier on that gives you extra hit points per location? You can pass that to someone else if you wish, provided they can also Read Scroll, because that spell affects the caster. If a paladin is casting a Magic Armor spell from a scroll, the paladin is the caster. Okay, let's have a look at the specialist classes. And the first one is the Wizard. This is a pure mage. They're used to doing very meta magic things. Their first skill is Arcane Deluge. This allows them to really attune to the powers of magic around them, and allows them at apprentice level once per refresh to initiate a state of mind whereby for 5 minutes all spellcasting costs are reduced by 1 power point to a minimum of 1 power point. So if you were casting a 2nd level spell, say Blast 2, which normally costs 2 power points to cast, under this effect it's reduced to 1 power point. As you become more skilled with the Arcane Deluge skill, so you can do more of these deluges per refresh, but you cannot stack them. So you can't suddenly stack them all at the same time and end up reducing your powers by more than 1 point per time. There are other effects that allow you to reduce power point cost as well. I'll let you search through the rule book to find them. I think you can get 3 points off the cost of a spell if you're particularly good, but I'll let you work out how to do that. Right, next skill for the wizard is Arcane Siphoning. This is where you can take power points from other people, provided they are willing. You can use your party members as batteries. So at first level, apprentice level, you can cast spells using power points from others. You must be in physical contact with them, they must be willing, and they must have power points to donate. And you can take 1 power point per person per refresh. So if you're suddenly all out of blast spells and you've got something you need to finish off, you just borrow someone with some power points, and as long as they're willing, you put your hand on their shoulder and you just keep blasting. So yeah, it's a bit like channeling by the priests, but in reverse, because priests are about supporting everyone else. Mages, we want other people to support us. We're the important people. Right. Next skill for the wizard is the Circle of Power. This is where you can create an arcane circle as a temporary camp structure. Go and have a look at the temporary camps section of the rulebook. But in doing so, you can end up with an arcane circle which gives certain effects. And as your skill for the skill of Circle of Power increases, so you can do more powerful effects. For example, at expert level, if you're in an arcane circle that's been made with expert level, then anyone inside it is immune to ranged attacks. So you can be in this happily, you know, having a pint, people firing bows at you. It's not going to work. You're in an expert level enchanted arcane circle. You're going to be fine. So that's something you can do. Let's say a good thing to do, you're turning up for a long weekend, you decide straight away you're going to gather some resources, you're going to enchant an arcane circle in your in-character tent or a place where you and your friends are hanging out in the player area, and suddenly you've got your arcane circle to use all weekend. Right, the next one for the wizard is Element Law. You command elemental powers, so these are more spells, so it's Create Element, Elemental Blast 2, Element Armor, and so forth. The next skill is Imbue. This is where you can take a spell and you can put it into someone else to cast. So it has to be the next spell that they cast. So if you put, say, one of your spells into a priest, that has to be the next spell they cast. Even if they want to use one of their own spells, they've got to get this one out of their system. You can do this as many times as you've got power points. It costs one. Basically, you use 1 power point for the imbue, and then you have to cast the spell as well. And you can put a first level spell into someone with apprentice level imbue, right up to giving someone a 4th level spell at Grand Master. This is even better than scrolls for transferring spells between different people, because you can imbue things into people who can't read scrolls, and as long as it's the next spell they can cast one of your spells. Okay, next skill is Staff Mastery. You have a wizard staff. It is immune to shatter, and you can cast spells through it as if it were a touch spell. So if there's a spell you need to cast which is a touch range, you can get your magic staff, Gandalf style, poke someone with it, cast the touch spell. The stick is an extension of you. Very good for not having to get too near to evil gribblers. You can, at higher levels, cast... do some more things, sort of combat things with it. So you can expert level, you can resist disarm. At master level, you can call double combat. And there's a whole range of skills and effects around the magical staff that you have. Next skill for wizards is Wizard Lore. This is yet more magical stuff. It's a generic mix of magic. At first level, you can cast Wound. touch spell, does 2 points of damage, goes through armor. Second level, you can create a magic wall, so you mark an area on the ground, and that for 5 minutes is a barrier, so a physical and magical barrier. And then next level, dispel magic and so forth. Finally, wizards can also learn wizard power, which gives them more power points, an extra 5 per level. So you can get apprentice level wizard power, apprentice level mage power. That gives you 10 power points. Choose a spell list. You've got a first level spell. You can cast that spell 10 times per refresh. Okay, on now to the second character class, the Scholar. The Scholar is a specialist mage that is all to do with knowledge, information, finding things out. The first skill they have is Alchemist. They know all about chemical and magical ingredients. They can make potions. This is a crafting thing that scholars can do. The next skill is Detection Lore. So they can use magical powers here to cast spells, to either detect magic, detect things that are hidden, to reveal secrets, and so forth. The next skill they have is Evaluate. This is just knowledge they have. It's not a spell. You know how much things cost. And so at the start of every event, you are given a price list, which gives you the value of a certain range of items. And as you increase your skill in evaluation, so the range of items you know the value of increases as well. Very useful if you're wanting to buy and sell stuff, or if you're looting somewhere and you need to know what's the stuff you really need to shove in a bag and run away with. Okay, the next scholar skill is called Knowledge. You just know stuff. You're well read. At the start of every event, you are given some background information, some of which will be useful, some of which is just facts, which won't be useful, but you can roleplay with them. But sometimes you might actually know something, and you're just that guy who has these facts and brings them up at appropriate situations. So as you increase your levels of knowledge, so your list of things you know at the beginning of the event, some of which will be relevant to things you will come across during that event, gets longer. The next skill for scholars is Scholar Lore. And you don't just gain knowledge from studying books, you can use magic. So first level, you can cast the spell Tongues, which means you can understand and communicate in any language for the next 5 minutes. At expert level, you get the second level spell Identify, which gives you information about magical properties of an item, and so forth. You can use this to find stuff out. We then have Scholar Power, which is another way of accessing extra power points. After that, you have Scribe. This is a way of buffing the right scroll skill, which you will have access to as a mage. But as a specialist within the scholar area, it means you can create 1 extra scroll per refresh, and it just gives you extra bonuses for casting scrolls and for translating and reading obscure alphabets, and you get extra scroll writing components and so forth. So that's if you want to be really nerdy around scrolls. Scribe is a good skill for buffing read and write scroll. And finally, the last scholar skill is Truth Lore, and this allows you to find out whether something or someone is telling the truth or not at various levels. So at first level, you get the spell Detect Lies. So the next 30 seconds, you can sense if anything said to you is a deliberate lie. And that gets even more powerful as it increases. So very useful for being a bit of an inquisitor and finding stuff out. Okay, now we're on to the third specialist class under the Mage base class, which is Spellsword. What we've done with this character class is we've kind of blended Mage with Fighter. So you've got some extra fighting effects, but you also have magic going alongside it. So the first skill you can get is Body Development. Very useful. Every level you get 1 extra hit point per location. So you can be a mage that doesn't fall over when they're hit. That's a good thing. Right, next skill is Defense Law. These are magical spells which will help you. At first level, you can cast Heal Self, which heals you of 1 hit point of damage. At higher levels, you get spells like Blur, which means you take less damage. This is a set of defensive spells. Next skill is Dodge. This is a pure combat skill. You can use your power points to negate the effect of blows that hit you. At apprentice level, 1 power point means you can call Dodge, ignore a single hit, a double damage hit, or a through blow. It just makes you more durable in combat. After that, we have a weapon skill, Long Weapon Mastery, so you can use a weapon between 18 and 42 inches to call special weapon calls. So you use your power points and you can call double at apprentice level, and you get stronger effects as you go up. Next, you have a spell list. We've already heard you have Defense Law. The flip side of that is Offense Law. These are magical tricks that give you the edge in combat. So at apprentice level, you can cast the spell Drop. You cast, by the power of magic, spell casting Drop. And the target has to drop 1 weapon they're holding. That goes to the floor. They're briefly flummoxed. You run in and hit them lots. It's a good trick. And you can get extra combat enhancing effects as you go up through Offense Law. The next few skills to finish off, we've got Short Weapon Mastery and 2 Weapon Mastery. Again, combat skills to enhance you there. Short Weapon Mastery means under 18 inches. You can do things like through damage or disarm effects. 2 Weapon Mastery means that you can use 1 weapon in each hand. You're ambidextrous, and depending on skill means the size of the weapon you can have in your offhand, and at higher levels you can then do weapon calls with your offhand as well as with your main hand. And final skill for the Spellsword is Spellsword Power, an extra 5 power points per level. If you've got all these weapon skills and all these spells, you're going to need a lot of power points to power them to make you effective in combat. So Spellsword Power is very useful. And the very final subclass, specialist class under Mage, is Artificer. You are an inventor, a mechanic. You build things but infuse them with magic. We wanted this class to be a bit like the tradesperson under Fighter, but the magical equivalent. So there is an awful lot bound up with the Artificer and the crafting system, as you'll see as we go through the skills. So first of all, Alchemist skill. You know recipes for making potions. So you can make common potions at apprentice level, advancing up from there. Next, you have Artificer Law. This allows you to cast a spell which creates components. Common components at first level up to legendary components at Grandmaster level. You're one thing short from making that essential potion. Well, you just conjure it into being and make the potion. Very useful. The next skill is Artisan. This allows you to make all manner of mundane items. Weapons, armor, jewelry, clothing, all sorts of things like that. As long as you can get the item cards, with the Artisan skill you can make them. At apprentice level you can make crude quality items. At expert level you can make quality items, and it increases from there. At the higher levels you can add enhancements to items. So you could have a sword and you can add an enhancement to it that gives an extra effect because it's particularly well made. Next skill is Builder. This allows you to get really deep into the downtime building effect of the system. So you gain a building resource card per event, and you have all of the in-game abilities of the general skills, carpentry and masonry, which means you can build temporary camp enhancements like a forge or a first aid station. But you can also, if you manage to amass all of the resources, you're also able to create buildings that your character will then have access to in downtime that will have in-game effects. So that's an insight, a way into really making the most of the building side of the system. The next skill is Disable Device. You can identify and disable traps, and the higher the level of your skill, the higher the level of the complexity of trap you can identify and undo. We mark traps by putting stickers with symbols on them on objects. You will start out with a list of which stickers and symbols mean something is trapped. Often we will put stickers on things that are decoys, so that people that don't have Disabled Device think it might be trapped and they're a bit nervous, but you can check it out and you can go, oh yeah, it's just a yellow label with a question mark on it. That's not a trap, that's fine. The next skill, quite integral to the Artificer, is Enchant Items. And this is yet another crafting skill. Only Artificers can enchant items. It's a way of making items, and if you get Artisan you can make items, and turning items into magical items. At apprentice level you can make them into single-use magic items. Working your way up you can then have rechargeable and then fixed number of charge magic items. Go and have a look around the crafting system around magic items if you're interested in that. It's a way that you can create stuff that keeps giving, allowing you to cast spells time and again. It's also another way of being able to transfer spells from one character to another. So you could make a ring that can receive magic items, a bit like the right scroll. Someone else can cast the spell that goes into that ring to make it magical. You can then take that ring, give it to someone else. They can then use the power of that ring. Right, just a couple of skills to go. We have lock picking. This is again the whole engineer artificer thing. You can break locks. You are given digits of a lock code. The locks in our system are padlocks with number codes on them. You get given some codes so you can get through some locks much quicker. And final skill is medium armor use. You're skilled in using and maintaining light and medium armor, and that just makes you a bit more durable. You're able to wear some heavy kit. Right, well that's a complete gallop through 5 classes and all the skills that they have. I hope it's not been too much to take in, and I hope it's given you an idea of just how flexible the different types of mage and specialist subclasses are. I think there's a real good variety in there, whether you're wanting to be more combat based, such as the Spellsword, involved in the crafting side, purely into the magical side like the wizard, or maybe the whole sort of knowledge and information side of the game through Scholar. There's a huge amount of opportunity of what you can do with those classes. I hope that's fired your imagination. If you've got any questions about how the system works, or maybe you want to come to a game and play as a mage, you can always get in touch with us. Have a look at the contact page on the Ilydan LARP website. Otherwise, I hope this has been fun. Thanks for joining us right through to the bitter end, and I hope to see you soon at a LARP event, an Ilydan LARP event, and we get to game together. Take care.